Welcome to the Explainer. Look, today we're skipping the long introductions. We are diving straight into the absolutely mind-blowing story of one of history's most fascinating figures. We're talking about a mighty king and a great prophet. We're going to explore the life, the unbelievable miracles, and, honestly, the wondrous and highly unusual death of Prophet Sulaiman, who you might also know as Solomon.
Okay, let's dive into this. There's a really foundational verse from the Quran, specifically in Surah An-Naum, that simply but powerfully states, وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ Dawood, and Sulaiman inherited Dawood. Now, Dawood, or David, was himself a towering prophet and king, but this one verse, it literally sets the stage for Sulaiman's immense, absolutely unparalleled authority on earth. I mean, he is stepping into some historically massive shoes here.
Section 1. Inheritance of prophecy, not wealth. You know, when we hear the word inherited today, our minds immediately jump to palaces, piles of gold, and massive fortunes, right? But the renowned Islamic scholar Ibn Kathir points out a really fascinating theological rule at play here. When prophets pass away, their material wealth, their money, their worldly stuff, it doesn't actually go to their families. It becomes charity. So Sulaiman didn't inherit Dawood's bank account. What he inherited was his prophethood and his kingship. He took on this massive divine responsibility to lead and guide an entire nation. Section 2. Suleiman's Miracles and Supernatural Soldiers. God granted Suleiman a kingdom unlike anything given to anyone after him, and that was exactly what he prayed for. His army wasn't just your standard elite human cavalry. No way. He commanded an entirely supernatural force. We're talking battalions of humans, legions of unseen jinn, and even literal flocks of birds. It's a brilliant illustration of his unmatched power over both the known and the unknown worlds. And he wasn't just pointing a sword and giving orders. The texts tell us he was actually taught the language of the birds. He could communicate directly with his non-human subjects. How wild is that? Surah Sad actually details these divine gifts super vividly. He had direct command over the wind itself. He could literally tell it to flow gently wherever he wanted, which basically collapsed travel times across his vast empire. Then you've got the shayateen, the devils from among the jinn. They acted as his master builders, putting up these massive structures and worked as deep sea divers retrieving treasures straight from the ocean floor. As for the rebellious ones, they were bound together in shackles to maintain absolute, unprecedented order across the kingdom. So, how long did this extraordinary era actually last? Well, 52. According to classical scholars like Azuri and Ibn Jarir, 52 represents Prophet Sulaiman's total lifespan in years. To put that into perspective, by modern standards and definitely by the standards of ancient historical figures, that is a relatively short life. But here is the truly staggering part. 40. Out of those 52 years of life, an incredible 40 years were spent ruling this magnificent, supernatural kingdom. He ascended to this immense power at an incredibly young age, and he held that heavy responsibility for pretty much his entire time on Earth. Section 3. The Wondrous Story of His Death. The climax of his journey is arguably the most fascinating and deeply reverent part of his entire story. But to really grasp why his death happened the exact way it did, we first need to understand the concept of al-ghaib. This translates to the unseen. We're talking about knowledge that is fundamentally hidden from creation. Things like the future, what's buried deep inside the human heart, and hidden universal truths. The ultimate intent behind the highly unusual circumstances of Suleiman's passing wasn't just about a great king's life ending. It was a setup designed to definitively prove a crucial theological fact to humanity regarding this unseen. Let's walk through the exact sequence of how this played out, step by step. Step 1. Suleiman stood in his place of worship, leaning heavily on his staff, completely deep in prayer. Step 2. By divine command, the angel of death took his soul right then and there, in that exact state of devotion. Step 3. Because he was propped up perfectly by his wooden staff, his lifeless body remained standing upright for an entire year. And during this whole time, those powerful jinn kept up their grueling labor. They were absolutely terrified to stop because they thought the great king was watching their every single move. Step 4. A tiny earth creature, a termite, slowly began eating away at the wooden staff. And finally, step 5, the staff's structural integrity failed. It snapped, and the body of Sulaiman fell to the ground, instantly exposing the reality to everyone watching. The Quran captures this incredibly poetic and honestly super ironic moment in Surah Saba. saying nothing indicated his death to them except a creature of the earth eating his staff. Just let the irony of that sink in for a second. You have these mighty, supernatural jinn, right? Beings capable of diving to the bottom of the ocean and building enormous fortresses. Yet they were completely clueless. It wasn't some grand cosmic sign or a mystical revelation that exposed the demise of the greatest king. It was literally just a tiny, oblivious termite looking for its next meal. And here is the ultimate revelation for the jinn, and really for all of humanity. When he finally fell, things became crystal clear. If the jinn had truly possessed knowledge of the unseen, which, by the way, a lot of humans at the time foolishly believed they did, they absolutely would not have remained in humiliating torment and backbreaking labor for a whole year. This dramatic event was an immediate, undeniable debunking of the myth that jinn possess any sort of divine foresight. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. If these immensely powerful supernatural entities did not even know that Prophet Sulaiman was dead, even while standing mere feet away from him for an entire year, who alone holds the true knowledge of the unseen? It's a profound, lasting reminder of the limits of creation, no matter how powerful they might seem to us, and the absolute infinite knowledge of the divine.